It's Wednesday, June 15th, 1904, and over 1,300 passengers are aboard the General Slocum. The General Slocum is a massive side-wheel steamboat, stretching 250 feet long and standing 3 decks high. Built in 1891, the vessel has been carrying passengers up and down the East River for 13 years. The steamboat has been chartered by St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. The church, made up mostly of German immigrant families, organizes this annual picnic every year. It's a tradition the community looks forward to, a chance to escape the crowded city streets and enjoy a day in the fresh air of Long Island. Aboard is mostly women and children dressed in their finest clothes. They're heading to a church picnic, a day of celebration and joy. But in less than 30 minutes, this pleasure cruise will turn into one of the deadliest disasters in New York City history. By 9 a.m., the dock at East 3rd Street is packed with excited passengers. Mothers adjust their children's hats. Teenagers laugh with their friends. Elderly church members find comfortable spots to sit. The church's pastor, Reverend George Haas, stands on the deck, greeting his congregation as they board. Nearly everyone from St. Mark's Church is here. In many families, only the fathers stayed behind to work. What no one knows is that most of them will never see their families again. At 9:30 a.m., the General Slocum pulls away from the dock. The paddle wheels churn the water as the steamboat begins its journey north. The plan is simple: sail up the East River, pass through the dangerous waters of Hell Gate, and arrive at Locust Grove on Long Island for an all-day picnic. The trip should take about 2 hours. Captain William Van Schaik, a 67-year-old veteran with decades of experience, stands in the pilot house. He's made this journey countless times before. As the steamboat moves upriver, passengers spread out across the 3 decks. Children run and play. Women chat and enjoy the river breeze. Some passengers buy snacks and drinks from the vendors on board. The sun is shining and everything seems perfect. But deep in the forward compartment of the ship, something terrible is about to happen. At approximately 10 a.m., a 12-year-old boy notices smoke coming from a storage room near the front of the ship. He alerts a crew member, but the man dismisses him. "It's nothing, kid," the crew member says. But it isn't nothing. A fire has started in a room filled with straw, oily rags, and lamp oil, the perfect ingredients for disaster. Within minutes, the small fire grows rapidly. Thick black smoke begins pouring out of the storage room. Passengers on the lower deck start to panic. Some try to alert the crew, but the ship's communication system is poor. By the time Captain Van Schaik learns about the fire, flames are already shooting up through the deck boards. The captain faces a terrible decision. He's currently passing through Hell Gate, one of the most dangerous stretches of water in New York, known for its strong currents and rocky shores. He could try to beach the burning ship on the nearest shore, but he worries the wooden docks will catch fire and spread to the buildings beyond. Instead, he makes a choice that will haunt history. He decides to keep going, hoping to reach North Brother Island, still over a mile away. But this decision has deadly consequences. The steamboat is moving at full speed, about 15 miles per hour. The wind created by the ship's movement fans the flames, turning the fire into an inferno. Within minutes, the entire front section of the General Slocum is engulfed in flames. Passengers rush toward the back of the ship, crushing each other in their panic. Parents desperately search for their children in the chaos. The screaming is unbearable. Black smoke fills the air, making it hard to see or breathe. Passengers try to escape the flames, but they quickly discover something horrifying. The life preservers stored on the ship are completely useless. The General Slocum carries hundreds of life preservers, as required by law, but these life preservers are 13 years old, the same age as the ship. They've never been properly maintained or inspected. When passengers put them on and jump into the water, the life preservers fall apart. The cork inside has rotted away, and the canvas is filled with useless materials like metal bars to add weight. Instead of floating, people sink straight to the bottom. Others try to lower the lifeboats, but they discover another nightmare. The lifeboats have been wired and painted to the deck so many times that they cannot be moved. Crew members struggle with the boats, but most are stuck solid. Only a few can be freed, and in the panic, even these are lowered incorrectly, dumping passengers into the river. The fire spreads with terrifying speed. The entire ship is now a floating furnace. Mothers face an impossible choice: watch their children burn alive or throw them into the treacherous waters of the East River. Many choose the water, tossing their babies and young children overboard, hoping someone will save them. But the current is strong, and most children are swept away or dragged under by the weight of their heavy, waterlogged clothing. Captain Van Schaik finally manages to beach the burning ship on North Brother Island at around 10:10 a.m. But by now, the General Slocum is completely consumed by fire. Passengers trapped on board have nowhere to go. Some jump from the top deck, falling 30 feet into shallow water and breaking their necks on impact. Others are crushed between the burning ship and the rocky shore. The patients and staff at Riverside Hospital on North Brother Island rush to help. They wade into the water, pulling survivors from the river. Nurses form human chains, passing children from person to person. Doctors work frantically on the shore, trying to revive victims, but for every person they save, dozens more are lost. The final death toll is staggering. 1,021 people dead out of 1,358 passengers. Most of the victims are women and children. Entire families are wiped out. In some cases, only the fathers who stayed home to work survive. The German immigrant community of the Lower East Side is devastated. Some families lose 7, 8, or 9 members. There are stories of mothers who save one child but lose 3 others, of teenagers who survive but lose their entire family. One survivor, 9-year-old Adela Weatherspoon, loses her mother and baby sister in the disaster. Another survivor, John Tishner, watches helplessly as his wife and 4 children drown. The Reverend Haas survives, but his wife and daughter perish in the flames. The guilt of surviving when so many die destroys him emotionally. The church eventually closes, unable to recover from the loss. The public demands answers. A federal investigation begins immediately, and what they discover is shocking. The General Slocum was a disaster waiting to happen. The life preservers were useless. The lifeboats were unusable. The hoses rotted and fell apart when crew members tried to use them. The ship had no fire drills, no proper safety training, and no working fire extinguishers. Inspectors had approved the ship just weeks before the disaster, but they never actually tested any of the safety equipment. They simply looked at paperwork and rubber-stamped the approval. The Steamboat Company, the Knickerbocker Steamship Company, had cut every corner possible to save money. Captain Van Schaik is put on trial. He's charged with criminal negligence and manslaughter. The prosecution argues that his decision to keep sailing instead of immediately beaching the ship turned a manageable fire into a mass casualty event. Every minute he continued sailing, the fire grew worse and more people died. The captain defends his actions, saying he was trying to protect the people on shore from the fire, but the jury doesn't agree. In January 1906, Captain Van Schaik is found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He serves 3.5 years before President Theodore Roosevelt pardons him in 1908. The captain lives until 1927, forever haunted by that terrible day. Surprisingly, the Steamboat Company and the corrupt inspectors who approved the faulty safety equipment face little punishment. A few officials are fined, but no one else goes to prison. the public is outraged by the lack of accountability. However, the disaster does lead to major changes in maritime safety laws. Congress passes strict new regulations requiring regular inspections of safety equipment, mandatory fire drills, and proper maintenance of life preservers and lifeboats. These laws saved countless lives in the years that followed. A memorial is eventually built in Brooklyn at the Lutheran All Faiths Cemetery, where many victims are buried in a mass grave. The monument shows a small boy and girl looking out over the water, a reminder of all the young lives lost that day. For years, the General Slocum disaster holds the record as New York City's deadliest disaster until September 11, 2001. And it's a story that asks us to remember the 1,021 people, mostly women and children, who left for a church picnic one June morning and never came home.